America often chooses to remember its wars through images of victory, courage, and strength, and rightly so. History has shown time and again that when freedom was threatened, American soldiers crossed oceans, endured cold, hunger, fear, and unimaginable loss, not in pursuit of conquest, but guided by the belief that certain principles were worth defending even at the cost of their own lives. Yet woven quietly between the gunfire, the ruins, and the parades are moments far less celebrated, but perhaps far more revealing of what true strength really is. Moments when power was not expressed through destruction, but through restraint. These moments are rare because war, by its very nature, seeks to erase individuality. It reduces men to units, enemies to silhouettes, and orders to unquestionable truths. It trains soldiers to react, not to reflect. And yet, even within environments designed to suppress empathy, there have been decisions that defied that machinery. Decisions made not by distant generals or politicians, but by ordinary individuals, soldiers, pilots, officers, who, in seconds that would define their lives, chose to recognize the humanity of those they had been trained to hate. In the final months of 1945, Europe stood shattered. Entire cities lay in ruins, roads were crowded with refugees moving without direction, and the air still carried the scent of smoke, decay, and death. Nazi Germany was collapsing under the simultaneous pressure of Allied forces advancing from the west and the Red Army pushing relentlessly from the east. American and Soviet troops moved toward one another as allies on paper, yet divided by deep mistrust. Their cooperation was not born of shared values, but of necessity. Both sides understood that once the common enemy fell, their fragile alliance would almost certainly dissolve into rivalry. Years later, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, then a young Soviet officer, long before becoming one of the most famous critics of the regime he once served, would reflect on these encounters not as political gestures, but as instinctive human responses. Men recognized that the war was ending, and that no matter what followed, none of them would truly escape unchanged. For a brief window before the Iron Curtain descended, compassion crossed borders that would soon become rigid and unforgiving. On the ground, however, war rarely followed clean political logic. Command structures were strained, communications were unreliable, and chaos dominated vast regions. Fanatical SS units refused to surrender, roaming the countryside, attacking civilians, executing deserters, and attempting to leave behind as much destruction as possible. Refugees wandered between front lines, former prisoners struggled to survive, and makeshift hospitals overflowed with wounded men of every uniform. That same moral instinct appeared in one of the most improbable confrontations of the Second World War, inside a medieval castle in the Austrian Alps. In May 1945, Castle Itter held a group of high-profile French prisoners, former prime ministers, generals, and prominent political figures. As the Nazi regime disintegrated, a Waffen-SS unit decided these men should not live to see liberation. Their execution was planned as a final act of defiance. In this environment, American and Soviet soldiers often found themselves cooperating quietly and informally. Patrols were coordinated without paperwork. Medical supplies were shared. Wounded men were treated based on need rather than nationality. There were no speeches, no photographs, and no official recognition. There was only the unspoken understanding that, in that moment, preserving life mattered more than ideology. What followed defied every conventional rule of allegiance. A small group of American soldiers, unsure of what they were walking into, joined forces with the French prisoners themselves and with a handful of German Wehrmacht soldiers who had rejected Nazi fanaticism. These German soldiers understood that the ideology they had once served had hollowed out their nation's honor and future. Fighting now was no longer about victory, it was about responsibility. Among them was Major Joseph Gangel. He knew the war was lost, but he also knew that his final actions still mattered. During the SS assault on the castle, Gangel was killed by a sniper while attempting to shield one of the prisoners. There were no medals waiting for him, no national narrative ready to claim his sacrifice. Yet in that moment, as bullets flew and allegiances dissolved, there were no victors and no defeated, only men who had chosen humanity over fanaticism at the very end of a brutal war. far above the ruins of Europe, another quiet decision had already echoed through history. In December 1943, American pilot Charlie Brown fought desperately to keep his B-17 bomber in the air after a disastrous mission over Germany. The aircraft was torn apart, its fuselage riddled with holes, its guns disabled, and much of its crew wounded or unconscious. It was defenseless. A German fighter approached, flown by Franz Stigler. From a tactical perspective, the choice was simple. One burst of fire would end the bomber and earn Stigler another confirmed kill. But as he drew close, he saw the truth inside the aircraft: young men bleeding, struggling to remain airborne, no longer capable of defending themselves. Stigler remembered the code of honor taught to him as a fighter pilot. Shooting them down would not be combat, it would be execution. Instead, he chose to escort the bomber out of German airspace, shielding it from anti-aircraft fire, before saluting Brown and turning back alone. He knew that discovery of such an act could have meant his own death. Decades later, when the two men finally met, they understood that their brief encounter in the sky had shaped the rest of their lives. The enemy war had assigned them became a lifelong friend, not because the past was forgotten, but because humanity had prevailed when it mattered most. When the guns finally fell silent, peace did not follow, only a new kind of conflict. The Cold War turned the world into a tense chessboard, where spies replaced soldiers and secrets replaced battles. Yet even within this silent war, moments of humanity persisted. Through indirect channels and unspoken agreements, American and Soviet intelligence officers sometimes acted to protect the families of their adversaries during natural disasters or medical emergencies. There were boundaries that, quietly, both sides respected. Children were not targets. Families were not weapons. War, no matter how global or ideological, remained a struggle between governments, not between innocents. These acts were never documented in official histories. They earned no commendations and appeared in no victory speeches. They were choices made in isolation, often at personal risk. But they reveal something essential: war demands obedience, but it cannot erase conscience. Orders may dictate action, but they do not eliminate choice. What binds these stories together is not nationality, ideology, or military success. It is the moment of decision, the choice not to pull the trigger when doing so would have been easy, expected, and justified. The decision to protect instead of destroy. To recognize, in the face of an enemy, a fellow human being. On battlefields designed to strip men of their humanity, these individuals proved that dignity, honor, and empathy could survive, and even endure. And in doing so, they left behind something more powerful than victory or defeat, a reminder that there are parts of the human spirit that war, no matter how brutal, can never fully destroy. Subscribe for more true stories of history, war, and human conscience.